Hello and welcome. I'm Martin Groschwald, CEO of Konzepthaus. What you're about to see and hear is one of 12 panel talks from our Mobility Design Conference 2025 at the Munich Motor Show, where we brought together leading voices from design, technology, and mobility to explore the future of our industry. In this session, you'll hear fresh perspectives and valuable insights straight from our stage. Let's dive in.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. So good morning and welcome to the CMF track. My name is Laura Burstein. I'm a design journalist and I'm here to help to facilitate some hopefully really eye-opening conversations and maybe some practical advice too that each of you can take back to your respective studios and organizations at the end of the day. And our first panel this morning, it's a little bit interesting because originally it was kind of billed as this idea of recruiting and attracting more women to the design industry under the topic of diversity. But what we found as we talked about it more and more, of course, both of us are women. I was one of the very first few automotive and certainly design journalists in the US, which was good, but what I think this panel is really going to explore on a broader scale is what does diversity mean? It's not just gender, maybe it's not just the country that you come from, and really dive deeply into not only what that is, how to build a diverse team, and at the end of the day, what does that mean and why? Why do we need it? And so our panelists today, we have Linda Meiby from Trayton Group, ID and HMI design operations. She spent previously 10 years in the mobile phone industry, so a unique perspective as well. And then Ben Nawka, head of design at Daimler Truck Asia. So thank you both having leadership experience as well. And so let's just sort of get into this idea first of all. Linda, we can start with you. If you want to maybe talk a little bit about your role, your background, and one or two notable or projects or positions that kind of put you in this unique perspective to talk about building diverse teams.
Okay, just testing the mic, but it seems to be okay, right? Yeah. So I started in the mobile phone industry when I was, and it was on the way up, really rising before, the iPhone came and all of that. So I was really thrown into quickly like a management position of designers and product planners in a very diverse company. So it was a merger between Sony and Ericsson that ended up in Sony Ericsson mobile phones. And there the mix was mainly Japanese, Swedish, who are pretty alike actually in the way that consensus is built and how you want to have people read behind the lines. It's not always easy to understand where there is a no, which I always have to explain somewhat to my current situation. The German colleagues like that was a Swedish no. And there was Americans. I was also going over to Taiwan as an expat, again, young and naive. I had a French on-site manager. He had his perspective on how you manage diversity. And I was leading a team of Taiwanese colleagues, mainly older than me. And that was really a challenge. Also, even understanding what would they feel for me as a manager when I was younger than they were. And I looked totally different. And so that was a very, very insightful experience. Currently, I'm in the role of Trayton ID and HMI operations, which is, as you know, in Trayton, it's 4 different brands of heavy trucks and buses coming together. Scania from Sweden, MAN from Germany, Volkswagen Truck and Bus, Brazil, and International in the US. And of all of those nationalities and different cultures, I would say that currently the most differences is actually between the Swedish and the German way of leading and understanding problems. So that's also a little bit of a unique situation, I would say.
Listen, Ben, can you also give us a summary?
Definitely, but I can relate so much, Linda, what you say. Some crossing paths. Interesting. I didn't know about it. So I mean, I'm a classic car guy, like educated in Pforzheim. You know, being the exterior guy. You know, going through the school of Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, being in charge of design for Mercedes-Benz Technology Group. Then I went to revive Borgward brand. So literally every Borgward you've seen in the production or show cars has been under my co-workership leadership. Doing a lot of business with China back then, and now also here being head of design for Mercedes-Benz or Daimler Trucks Asia in that respect. Also 3 brands under the umbrella in a massive region, China, India, everything eastwards, all the way to Asia Pacific. Really dealing with a lot of cultures, you know, different backgrounds, different economical situations is a constant learning. But on the other hand, I would say, besides, you know, the career path, you know, what really shaped me the most, I would say, is, you know, living also in those areas. You know, I lived in the US, I worked there, in Germany certainly, in Taiwan as well, Japan, China, India, and I can really relate to people who miss diversity, being someone, maybe the only Western sometimes, in a different surrounding.
And that's the unique thing about the design industry is it's very naturally a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, which is normally a great thing. It also can be a challenging thing. And let's talk a little bit more about sort of this definition of diversity, right? Because we've explored this before. And I think it's also important to note that it's not just about checking boxes, right? I'm living in the US right now when there is a terrible backlash. Anything that has any word diversity in it is suddenly, you know, a dirty word and bad, and let's get rid of it. But I think it's important to underscore the fact that it's not just about optics, right? It's not just about making people feel included. It's not just about making people, you know, an organization look good. There's real business benefits as well. There's team benefits. There's, at the end of the day, hopefully a benefit to the product. So let's talk a little bit about these definitions and explore, like, what does diversity mean to you?
Tricky question, right? I'd start from the end of the program and say, why do you want diversity? As a designer, I've always been very business oriented in a sense. And when we're looking at, sometimes we make that error of trying to create diverse team because, you know, there's a tick box and it's supposed to be scientifically proven that there is more creativity and it will be more innovative, etc., etc. We all know this, but you have to think about what is it that I want to achieve out of the diversity. And to me, it's you want a diverse team in order to create best possible results, right? And the best possible results in a tricky business where there are so many different requirements happen. The complexity, I would say, about that situation is often about finding the right balance. Where do we focus our efforts? Do we spend our sort of creativity on that ledge, or do we put an effort on the UX side of it, or do we put an effort on this and this and that? And you cannot really get that sort of relevant problem solving if you are not diverse enough. So that's, to me, that's one of the key things. And in that case, diversity, what I see in diverse teams, I would see personality as a diversifier. Like, you want a good mix in an efficient team of people who are like action oriented, and you want people who are detail oriented. You definitely want men and women. But as we talked, I mean, this women perspective, sometimes you feel that it's a little bit of too conservative as a discussion. What you do want is, you don't want a totally male team, because they get like this jargon, what is it called? The way they talk, it becomes
Bro culture, we say.
Yeah, bro culture. But the same is true about women. So I shouldn't say this is a male problem. It's just that we see much more, like in this industry, we see a lot of male teams. So then it's easily recognized. I mean, women culture is just as bad. It's like the mix that you really want, because in the mix, what happens is that you get a team that are a little bit more respectful to each other. You actually listen. You don't go back into that sort of stereotype sort of nagging or conflicts, you get a more sort of efficient group, actually, which is prone to solve the problem. And that's what you want, in my perspective.
I think it's interesting, and I just want to, as an aside, I agree with you completely because, and Ben, you live in Japan, so you know this. In Japan, they have made special train cars just for women. And I actually am against it because I was like, well, first of all, women shouldn't need a special train car, but also you're reinforcing to the men to go ahead and keep behaving how they are because the women will just get away from you. And I've always thought, as a woman in the industry, there have been certain demographics that have gone off and made their own club for a long time. And when you go off and make your own club and isolate everyone else, it doesn't solve the problem. So I think this is the core, right? The core is how do we not make our own clubs, but work together and take advantage and make use of each other's perspectives and skill sets to make each other better. So, but yeah, let me hear your...
Well, I mean, you guys are right. Although I have to say I see diversity also in a much broader, more global scale. And my favorite comparison is always, we are living and working for industries which sell products in so many countries. And we don't select our customer by gender, by cultural background. We are happy that whichever product we work on is being sold wherever. So why in the world we should now turn around and make that kind of picking, females and males and Chinese, by which filter, right? It's like, it doesn't make sense to me because I always say, what I'm most interested in is the character of the person. Does it fit to the team? Does it fit to the company? Do they understand what is our mission? And then I don't care. Young, old, female, male, from US or from I don't know where, Thailand, this is just, I think, a mindset that you have to foster. And this is also then you really have to take action as well, right? A lot of people work on diversity top down, or they would put a lot of kind of advertising, we are diverse, but actually, I don't see that, right? In the execution.
And I think the challenge is, though, you're right, I agree with you, because it's also mindset, it's personality, but I think some of the challenges that a lot of organizations have is HR or whoever it is has to quantify, right? We need this person, if they are working on diversity. I mean, some organizations that's out the window now and they don't care. But I think, how would you as a leader be able to quantify that?
It's a tough one. I mean, I think there's a gap between, by default, more international teams like design. I mean, I think generally more open, I would say, than HR, which has to set KPIs, right? As you mentioned, we have to have this 30%, 40%, 50%. And then we immediately have a risk to go into the trap because, we don't have the influx of people from that backgrounds in our industry, right? Like women is a topic as an example, right? And I can sense this in our region as well. It even comes to the point, how are people getting educated? What's the quality of the education? And this makes that KPI setting from HR actually an ongoing discussion, I would say. It doesn't mean it's wrong. I think the consensus is we need to do something, but is it the right to just go by numbers as an example? I would say I go by impact.
Totally agree with you there. And that's why I think that we're on the same page with what I would want to measure in a team is not how it's set up. It's like it just makes as much sense as saying, okay, there's people who are tall and those who are small and those who are big feet and whatever. But I want to measure, that's what I'm after. You want to measure somehow the impact or the efficiency, whatever you want to achieve with that diverse team. And at the end of the day, you want to achieve something that is creative, a good balanced, well-balanced design work. You want them to deliver on time, you want them to deliver with quality, etc. And those are the things that I'd measure. And then I think a lot about setting up the right sort of team is something which you have to take care of as a design manager. And usually with experience, you see somehow the benefits of this, how diverse teams tend to especially solve problems, I would say, in a way which is, it doesn't, and also which are the conflicts that occur. Like if you have a less diverse team, my experience is that it usually becomes a little bit trivial conflicts. It can be about who decided what at what point in time. Was I right? Were you right? Whatever. But it's like if you there's some sort of aspect, if you put a lot of people who look and understand that they are different in a team, they tend to start respect each other. It's like you focus on listening a little bit more. So that's what I can see in diverse team who are well functioning, because just because they are diverse doesn't mean they have to be well functioning. You have to, that's like a development stage. But diverse team tends to be better at problem solving.
And then going along with that, I'm wondering if either of you have maybe some specific examples. You don't necessarily have to name names, but some projects where you think that a diverse team helped to make the development process better, helped to make the product better. Let's love to hear some of those stories.
Absolutely. I mean, just recently, since I took the role over, 2.5 years ago in Japan, I happen to also have a design studio in India, right? And there's big, I would say, educational and also mindset difference between those two nations and countries. So I figured out quite quickly there's a lot of strength from our Indian design team, very fast, very flexible, very kind of really dynamic, young, questioning a lot, versus a very experienced, perfectionist, highly experienced team. And then I could see, that one is missing in our Indian team, and the other speed and the efficiency is missing in Japan. So I really mixed them up, and every project, really flowed around. And that made us do projects a lot faster. So I think that's a good point. And even in my previous role, when I had the design studio in Stuttgart and one in Beijing and Shanghai, was the same. As a German, you're very process-oriented, and it's very difficult for us to accept that a non-linear process also works, versus, our Chinese members, and they taught us, we can also do it that way, and it also works. So from my takeaway is in that respect, no matter how educated you are, it's just you always learn something, right? I can't tell I got educated the German way, it's right? I think this is also the mindset you have to have as a leader, and also to tell your team, it's not wrong if others tell you there's a different perspective or a different way to do it.
One very recently in concrete would be, and we're doing a big program, which is a modular program, TMS, and it's all about, can we achieve the design differentiation between two brands on more or less the same modular platform, and where are the boundary conditions of that modular platform? How much differentiation should be allowed? How much can we afford, etc., etc., etc. And of course, the Volkswagen Supervisory Board wants to see this now produced. And we had very many people not even usually involved into design, thinking that, or requiring that they want to see it in a full scale. And they want to see it in Södertälje at some point in time. And it becomes very like a locked position where we spend so much time thinking, can we get those vendors on board, etc. And then somebody from I think it was the international team said in that cross-functional discussion, guys, why don't you just print it? On a huge screen or like a curtain. Obviously you cannot produce that in time. It's just impossible. So it doesn't really matter what your higher management says about this. And you were like, yeah, it's possible. So it's also about, in that case, I would say it's not a super innovative idea, but it's also giving confidence to the team that you don't have to abide to your sort of culturally learned management style. You can also say, okay, you can do it differently. So that's a small one.
And maybe adding one more thing, and this is probably also a challenge, especially in a certain leadership position, as you mentioned, you have to listen to people, and that's so easily said, but really finding time, skip level meetings, talking to staff members to understand where's the pain points, how they can contribute, what do I miss, is so fundamentally important. And why I'm saying that as an example, especially in global organizations, I also have colleagues in Brazil, as it seems. So, I have also team members speaking Portuguese. I have team members speaking Chinese. Whenever we have meeting with those entities, they are on board, because sometimes the English language is a compromise for both sides. And then if you want to speed up things, I just say, guys, continue just in Chinese now, or in Portuguese. Give me the bullet points at the end. And then we don't need the hour. We are done in 25 minutes. And this is also why I say this kind of diversity really helps.
And it's an interesting point on both sides, because you kind of have two sides of the coin, right? You have leadership, which is, it's important, obviously, like you say, you need leaders that listen and that understand, but not everybody is so lucky to work in an organization that has this kind of leadership. And Linda, I like what you said about being able to make decisions without top management, because for me, as an American, we are very flexible. We almost what do you say? It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And then I notice in the German culture, even down to the smallest thing, if it's not the plan, it's not the plan, and nobody knows what to do. They're kind of paralyzed. So the word that came to mind when you said this to me is empowerment, right? Empowering everyone in the studio from every level to be able to take the initiative to know that at the end of the day, this is a better decision for the team. And I think, yes, of course, it's better if this is coming from management, but I think within the groups as well, in the smaller groups, if there's this trust and this understanding that, you're here for a reason, clearly you're qualified to be here, somebody believes in you. And I think this idea, right, of having the empowerment to get things done is also a good strategy as well.
At Konzepthaus, we combine design know-how with industry insight to help companies move forward. Our consulting teams work with both startups and leading OEMs to refine the design processes and develop tailored strategies to enable them to stay ahead of the fast-changing industry. Simply put, we help design leaders make better decisions for the future. Find out more about our consulting services at konzepthaus-consulting.com.
Totally agree.
100%, but this also requires, again, that you are not finger pointing to your team members if something goes wrong, because I know enough people in the industry would just say it wasn't me, it was that manager, or that guy. And I educate myself and my team members, my management as well. I said, if you make a mistake, it happens. First, especially if it's the first time of that mistake. If you repeat, let's talk, right? But you need to have also the how you say it, the greatness to just say, well, that's me. I give you the chance. It didn't work, but it's not. I'm not going to be mad at you, because this is how we learn. But that's a big pinpoint, I think.
No, this is really, perhaps that's not diversity, but that's so essential to a well-functioning team and a company, that you somehow love your deviations, is something we say from, that's an old Scania saying, but it's good. If you don't have that culture that you bring out whatever mistakes as something that is positive, you will not, it doesn't make the mistakes go away, you just detect them much later. And then if you start a finger-pointing game, that's really what you start losing, because then people get less secure. Of course, Swedes, we love this social security and the empowered team, etc. But it's really what brings out for most people in a creative team on one level, to my experience, that's really what brings out the best ideas, where you can have a flat communication base, and you can be honest, etc. So that's really what you want to achieve. And then you, as a manager, you really have to work with the finger pointing thing as an active choice, saying I don't accept the finger pointing. I don't care who made the mistake. Just, what are we doing now? That's the only thing that is important.
Maybe this still qualifies as diversity to a certain extent, because if people know that they have this culture of acceptance, you get diverse applicants. It's not just a specific group of people who, as you mentioned, is educated the German American way, but you get a lot more people knowing about your company, knowing about the work culture, and if they see that as a diverse workspace, you also get a much bigger talent pool.
Yeah, totally agree. I know that was one of the questions that you had. Like, how do you get women if you want more women? If we assume, let's say, the automotive design industry, women don't need the automotive design industry, but the automotive design industry definitely needs women, right? So it should be in the interest of those companies to get more women on board. And to do that, I think there is definitely something within that sort of the management skills, that recruitment base. You have to show that you can be a good, a good company that creates a good work condition, where you also you hear from other designers. It's a small community that this employer is a good employer. It's a nice climate in the studio. It's a place where you can grow. It's a place where you are accepted, etc. That's one part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ben, I agree with you. I think that when you are in a culture that fosters this idea of diversity, you're right. It's a broader mindset, right? So you are more apt to listen to somebody. You're more apt to not blame somebody, and you're all learning together. And I think that's important. And to your point, Linda, about attracting more women to the industry, I mean, it is still an issue. I mean, yes, diversity in many ways is great, but at the end of the day, there are not many women in car design. And I think part of the challenge is beyond the grasp of the studios, in that with many industries, and I think STEM has done a really good job of this, is you have to expose girls earlier. Because by the time they're in university or something like this, they're not as excited about it. Maybe it's a little bit of a change of focus. This is not necessarily something we can solve today, but I do think that the car companies, some have been good at going out and recruiting in high school level, but I would love to see, small children, just like they've been doing with STEM, giving girls cars also, and I think this exposure, and so this goes back to exposure and also the educational system. So if you have any, Ben, feedback and insight into this.
We have both parents right here, and I also have two girls, and one boy. And I think it really starts with parenthood, very early, I mean, we got educated, we got kind of used to a system of blue and pink, of dolls and cars. And it's very difficult to overcome, because even as a parent, if you try to be a little bit more open or let it go, your friends, your neighbors, your parents, whoever gonna go with that flow. But still, I think just talking about the opportunity, right? And saying, hey, follow your instinct, If a car is something you would like, it doesn't matter, again, if you are from India, growing up in a small village, or if you are in the suburbs of Beverly Hills. It's just go for it, right? And I think we have to then follow, and this is also probably what you talk about, is where's the responsibility of the companies, of governments, educational systems, to just foster that diversity also much earlier across along the whole career path, or educational path for the beginning. Because we have that issue, right? I can ask for more women as professional car designers, but we don't have the numbers, literally.
No.
And that's not necessarily only the industry fault, partially, but not only.
Yeah, it's complex, as you say, because it's also, you detect when you have teenagers and they start getting very affected by how the educational system looks. And it's not only you as a parent who are their sort of sounding board anymore, so they get very much affected about the culture. I just sort of, and I agree that it's still about parenting. I always saw it also as an opportunity as a woman to be one of the few within an industry which is usually male-oriented. I do have a strange last name, but it's more likely that people will remember me, as far as I recall my early career, than I would remember all the men. That was sort of more or less the same. So that's something you could use to bring more women into the industry, for sure. I mean, you have an opportunity to be unique, and sometimes it also means that you have an opportunity as a woman not to be measured on the same scale. So you get away with doing perhaps things that are a little bit different.
I know for me, totally unrelated, but the first time I started covering auto shows, the thing I liked the best is the line for the bathroom for the women was really short. And I was like, this is payback for all of the other events I go to when the women's line is out the door. I'm like, hey, there's nobody there. But then, you sort of revealed this dichotomy as you were talking about children and culture and girls. And I think that in this case, if you're applying this idea of diversity, including cultural diversity, to our conversation, I think this is also a challenge and also a roadblock, especially when it comes to children and women and girls, because there are so many cultures still where it's very like, the girls don't do that, or even like socioeconomic. I remember meeting some young students in art center from China, and one of them said, my parents are angry that I'm going here because they say car design is not a real job. I should be the businessman or something like this. So I think this is a double-edged sword.
It is, but it's again about communication and being transparent here, because obviously, starting from that point, car design or being a designer at the moment is quite an attractive and well-paid job, right? So I think this is just a misconception from a more or less traditional background. You can let figures talk at the end, right? And the other hand is, how I see that is like, if we really want to make this split between, girls can do that and boys can do that, is like the question, what is the benefit for us? And there is no, because technically we have a chance to cut off 50% of women, and men is 50-50, right? Of workforce, of brain power, of innovation. Why should we do that? Why should we limit that intelligence just because we used to that? We got educated like that. I don't get that point, right? So I just say, then we have to lead by example. And whenever I see this kind of tendencies, arguments, looking into, maybe we should go for that guy rather than for the woman as an example. I say, okay, give me a valid reason. If there is no, let the talent talk. Let at the end just look into the skills and see, who is just fitting the best. And there's a very, 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 very rare chance that you have a man and woman. This is the classic excuse, if there's if they're exactly the same, then we go for the woman. I've never had that case. I've never had candidates which have been exactly the same.
Oh, I totally agree. It's still people.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so I would say personality in people is much more interesting in that diversity discussion. Then it becomes a more valid recruitment. I was thinking something about the female perspective. My impression, perhaps that's a little bit also from Swedish design schools, etc., that the design schools are very idealistic. We had a section day where we were at Konzepthaus in Stockholm, and we got totally, I think this is even on YouTube, to be honest. There was one student who was so emotional about Scania then not reaching the sustainability targets that were set up for that year. He was so engaged into this. He had a long lecture, and we had a sustainability manager of Scania being there responding to those questions in a very professional way. But not to underestimate let's say designers are visionaries. You usually don't become a designer, although it's well paid, but in some places, I should say, not everywhere. But usually you don't get become a designer for the money. You become a designer usually because you have a vision of sort of changing the world or doing something really good. And you want to put your imprint on the world somehow. And that's where I feel that the female perspective is perhaps not as much drawn to the automotive area in design communities, because that discussion is not as open. It's not as apparent that what am I doing here which is good for the world. So the sustainability aspect, the meaningfulness of sort of what the design can do in the automotive industry, I think that's an opportunity missed, to be honest, to bring in more women.
And I was going to flip the script too and say, of course, the big exception is in CMF, where the majority of the departments are filled by women, headed by women, and so I mean, obviously it's changing. There's more women in exterior and interior, but I want to reverse that a little bit too, and talking about like how can we, why are men not so attracted to CMF, and would this also change the CMF departments, making this also a little bit more balanced?
Back to parenthood. I mean, CMF is often related to fashion, materials, and being educated exterior designer, I figured out there's much more than just the shape of the vehicle, right? And then actually, I mean, it's not no news, right? I mean, how you experience a vehicle is by touch and feel, right? Even more nowadays when technology gets so similar, just, our UX colleagues talking at this moment, how to differentiate when you have all the same software. So I can't tell you the reason, to be very honest. I assume it must be educational, kind of, again, educational path, which is, forcing most of our people into that way. But on the other hand, I would also say, looking into the subcontinent of India, which is a very colorful one, I have some very, very good Indian male CMF designers. And I can't tell the difference, I mean, I didn't even choose man or woman. I was just like, I saw the portfolio, I saw the mood boards, I saw that, feeling for colors and materials. I said, I want to have that guy. I wasn't even thinking, as the old as a young, I just said, this is a great, as character-wise as well. But I think we just, again, have to lead by example. You have to probably just, give it a little bit of time, unfortunately. And feedback also to the university as an example. We also team up with NID, with Pasadena, those guys, to just, let them understand what is the future needs? Where do we have, at least in our industry, the biggest differentiators in the future, right? We don't change shape every 5 years, right? This is not our business. But we can make an impact, on sustainability, materials which are related to that, and color coding as an example.
Yeah. No, I'll bring it back to the sustainability topic there as well. I think that's where the women are also very much attracted to the CMF. I've seen much more men, to be honest, in the CMF area recently because there's sort of this connection to sustainability, being able to produce or affect the world in a positive way by choosing sustainable materials, using new techniques, etc. Then it tends to be more interesting. But I think also, as you say, that it's typically a little bit female because it's less expressive, less loud in a sense, more detail-oriented, potentially. Could be a tradition in education.
It makes sense. And going back to this diversity as a whole, we've talked about some challenges in terms of, leadership, of education. Any other big challenges that you see standing in the way of this sort of ideal of diverse teams?
Practically, diversity, having a great, super diverse team is not always an asset. I mean, it's if you're looking at the team, you want efficiency to come out of it or some sort of delivery coming out of it. And if you put together people who are too diverse without the skills of being able to communicate, then that's a big challenge. And that's usually where you sort of, as a manager, you struggle when you put together teams that that if I overdo it, then it's likely I'll have to sort of pay by, a few months investment into problem solving, conflicts, getting people to understand, talk to each other, for sure. And perhaps that's sort of that investment is worth it on the long run because you will have a highly sort of listening and understanding team. But it's for sure an investment for the manager. That's one part of it. But I think also it's a lot about language, to be honest, about communication.
But it sounds also, when you're talking about investment, it's also up to management to not just throw a bunch of people together who are different. Like you said, it's taking the time for the team to get to know each other. Yeah. So maybe this is offsite, maybe this is team building, things like this. And I think that's a key topic that you brought up because, you're not just throwing everybody in the pot and say, okay, now go make something. So.
I think, I just said, I think at least in big corporations, it's a structural issue, right? I mean, we have to also challenge our reporting lines. We have to really look into is what we do, the mission which we have still under the right umbrella, as an example. And as you mentioned, just again, coming back from the HR view, having KPIs, 50% of the team needs to be diverse. It's like, if I just go for the numbers, there's a high chance it doesn't work, because you just do it for the sake of fulfilling a number without looking into, again, what is the impact at the end. And the same is also then applying in terms of, do you give the people the time, the room, the freedom, most of all, to also, as you mentioned, get to know each other. And it's not just a language topic or the cultural background. Just one example, in my team I have a lot of designers who don't have a truck driver's license, so we pay them, and that's money, right? To make a truck driver's license. This also, lets them understand that the very diverse group of truck drivers, they have a quite interesting vehicle to deal with. And I don't know if you ever drove a truck. I mean, it's as much fun as a Porsche 911, I tell you. It sounds odd, but it's really nice,
It's like becoming Iron Man.
Yes.
Right? Isn't it like you sit yourself into a vehicle and suddenly you're a dinosaur or something? Yeah.
And I mean, also in our group, we have a range of vehicles with EVs and super powerful, super fast, and then these manual Indian things where super scared to just, go downhill. But we give that people the chance, and then I have to also accept, that they spend 2 or 3 hours a week to not be in the office, to not work on the project, but I know it's, as you mentioned, paying off later.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's the usual suspects again on how do you actually do it. IRL, you have to get people to be close enough to be able to, at some point, not every time. Obviously, if you have global teams, you always have to do it in a different way. But if you can get people who don't have the reason saying that I'd like to work from home because it's more convenient for me, I'd really push them to be IRL. The problem solving is so much quicker, but there is also like this emotional connection that only happens to your colleague when you're sort of looking at them in the eye and say, yes, I'll deliver this to you. And you don't go back on that promise. That sort of connection doesn't really happen as fast over Teams. So get them together. That's really sort of where the human connection starts. Another thing is like cultural barriers that you try to talk with. We mentioned before, talk with images. Sometimes you're designers. You can use images to talk and communicate as well. Draw it on the whiteboard, draw it wherever to try to resolve any issue. It usually becomes much easier and less problematic.
Just one remark as to language, because that's a classic of the classic, right? When it comes to diverse teams, this is for me not valid at all, especially not in terms of all the AI tools which we have, instant translations. I mean, 15, 16 years ago, being in Taiwan, without any Google Translator, that's a different story, right?
Yeah.
As an example. And I just need to make the people aware, I tell them, don't use this as an excuse, and even, let your experience grow within yourself. When I was in my old company, in China, also the level of English is very different. We had a young designer, never forget that, he was showing, Sketchwall, his SUVs, and then I asked someone else from the young guys, what do you think? And he was just looking at me, I think it's shit. And I was like, whoa, that's a bold statement. And then, I just said, I don't think he means that. I was just instantly thinking, why should he be so aggressive, And then I just asked another colleague, can you talk to him in Chinese, what actually he meant? And he just meant the detail, actually. He was pointing at it kind of a little bit funnily, but this is the little things, experience. But you need to also then share these experiences with your team members.
Yeah.
That they don't get offended.
Exactly. No, but and that's probably also something you have to do within that team to sort of really educate them to listen to the good intention. Usually people have a good intention. And sometimes they're scared and they're sort of saying uncomfortable things, but most of the time it's anyway more useful for you to assume there is a good intention. Sometimes you can even save their aggressive comment, take it as a positive, and they might change their mind in the middle of it. And that sort of thing you really have to work with in those diverse teams, that you really make them listen to the intention, not exactly and explicitly what is said. So that's why emails are also a bit dangerous in this context.
Yeah, for sure. And in wrapping up, I mean, we definitely talked about some ideas for the teams, but I would say if you can leave the audience with one final thought, maybe they're not a manager or an educator, what can each person, when they leave today and go back into their studio tomorrow or whatever it is, take with them a piece of advice on how they can better foster diversity and understanding within their own team?
You want to start? I can. Honestly, I was inspired by the fact when I reflected on how the climate, once a diverse team, can be very much more respectful to each other. I think one thing to bring with you is that if you listen a little bit more to people and really assume good intent, also within the team where you're at, doesn't matter if it's diverse or not, you will find the quality of that communication. I think you can get out much more out of the creative teams you have, be they diverse or not.
Yeah, I would probably say in a nutshell, I would say, guys, don't make diversity rocket science.
No.
Right? Because it's easy to complicate the topic, but at the end, if you just go back, lead by example, take action, don't talk. It's like, if you feel your team is doing well, with the amount of diversity which you have, fair. If you think we can be better because I'm missing something, take action.
Thanks for watching this session from the Mobility Design Conference 2025 as part of the Munich Motor Show 2025. I hope you found some inspiration and new ideas about where mobility design is heading in the future. If you'd like to see more talks from the conference, make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned. There is more to come.